my question really follows on some of these conversations. First of all, let me thank the faculty for excellent presentations and including the moderator who's handled this really well. I was coming from the opposite side, and how do you carry on a conversation with religious-minded people on this topic? I'm coming from the other side. And I think you alluded to that in terms of remind them of the neighbor's responsibility and all that. That's a difficult question because their counter arguments are using the scriptures to base reply. So how do you deal with that situation? You're coming from a human rights perspective and saying it's an individual choice. So how does one deal with that situation from the other side?
It's exceptionally difficult. I think it takes a great deal of patience, and this is a challenge I'm working through myself in developing a range of conversation resources for religious communities to talk about marriage equality. It's difficult because if there's no relationship between people, if you don't know anybody who's LGBTQI, or at least if you've excluded them from your life, for most people they're present, but we just don't see them or acknowledge them. So part of the first challenge is actually to build a relationship, that they've met someone, that they can hear mutual concerns. But then comes the bigger challenge of reimagination, where, and this is where I think it is incumbent upon leaders to articulate a vision of being a loyal Christian or a loyal Muslim, where our understanding of family and faith and honour and tradition are valued. But it's done in a way where you can sign off on all those things. You can still be a loyal Christian and you can embrace marriage equality, because marriage equality draws out the best in your tradition, draws out the best of loving God and loving neighbour. And I think that is, but you've got to reinterpret those scriptures along the way. You've got to know those scriptures more deeply, and that's a lot of work. It takes a lot of work with language, it takes a lot of work with symbols, and a great deal of patience and love for each other, because we've got to recognise that people get upset when they are fearful or when they're hurt. And you're never going to change someone's mind if they are going to feel like they're going to lose something through this.
I think you've touched on a really good point, which is that the dialogue that is often occurring on this issue doesn't necessarily resonate with all people in our community. And what does resonate with progressives tends to be the issues, dialogue around human rights, around discrimination, that sort of language, those sorts of frameworks. But they don't necessarily resonate with the conservative audience or a religious audience. And I think that's probably where, for a number of years, the movement in support of marriage equality went wrong. And so what you're seeing now is a bit of a shift in that. So the current campaign that's currently happening, the TV ads are very much focused around personal relationships, personal stories, those sorts of values around family, values that resonate with a more conservative audience. And they're the audience that I think needs to be targeted. They're the group that is not shifting in relation to this issue, and it's only a small segment of the population, but it's a very significant one when we're talking about members of the federal parliament and who they're influenced by, particularly on the Liberal side and national side of politics. So you'll see that change happening through the advertising, and I think that's certainly where it's going. They're trying to tap into more family-oriented values and those sorts of personal stories, and we hope that makes a difference, and certainly made a difference overseas in Ireland and campaigns in the US. So that's not to say we shouldn't talk about human rights and tackling discrimination, those sorts of things, but that resonates with a certain audience and not with everyone. we need to make sure that we're really talking to everyone with this campaign.
With, it is a difficult question, and as marriage has been defined in the law, it has a particular it's circumscribed by certain values, but the law allows each confessional sector or religious sector to allow them to express the meaning of marriage in their own culturally specific kind of way. In the Muslim community, for example, there has been quite a lot of work done on the idea of marriage, not so much from the issue of marriage equality in the LGBT sense, but more from the sense of how immigrant communities from polygamous societies can adapt their idea and values of marriage into a largely monogamous society, a society which defines marriage in a monogamous kind of sense. But this has developed or moved further into looking into aspects of same-sex marriage, and quite a lot of work has been done in the US, and there are quite a few papers written in non-Islamic journals. So mostly they sort of write in family law type journals, and there are some books written on this issue where the matter is discussed between legal scholars is one thing, and when these debates will penetrate into a largely conservative community is a completely different kind of issue. So I think it's a question of time. I'm not sure whether it's only a question of time, but there is certainly a question of legality that is very important to, say, people of the Muslim faith. And the approach that scholars have taken is to look at, and if I can use some Arabic terminology here, and I can explain it if you would like, in the primary sources of Islamic law, the criminal law that has been defined has particular sanctions which are defined in a particular kind of way. And there are a very small group of activities which are proscribed and for which there is a religiously mandated penalty. Everything else, by presumption, becomes lawful, and this is where the conversation takes place. Superimposed on this is the issue of culture and how culture has evolved over time. And because culture is a source of law in Islam, certain practices have become embedded in largely Muslim majority societies. But in societies where Muslims are minority, they have started re-examining some of these issues as to how they can be adapted to the situation of a Muslim living as a minority, and also as a question of the fundamental issues of their religious law. And there is work done on this, but it is still in its infancy, really, when you think about how other legal communities have examined the question.
Next question.